of me. I see. My computer's a little slow because it's backing up. Here we go. Who's with us? James Roth in the house from Indianapolis. Great to see you. Yehudit Sobel from Florence, South Carolina. Stephen Giger from Dover, New Hampshire. Edward Hockman says, greetings. Robin Stewart from Ohio. Owen Mayer says hello from New York, I believe. Bryna Bloomfield from Sharon, Massachusetts in the house. Good to see you, my holy brothers and sisters. All right, let's get right into it. Today's daf is going to challenge us a little bit, just to keep it straight. Not simple, definitely doable. And we're going to learn a lot if we put on our focus cap. All right. Where are we? We are in Masechet Shabbos, the second tractate of the Talmud. We're in chapter 10. We're going to be discussing Mishnah number 5. This is Daf Tzadi Gimel, page 93. Okay, it's a new Mishnah. The Mishnah says that one who carries a large mass out of his house from the private domain out into the public domain on Shabbos is liable for violating Shabbos. Okay, no surprise there. We've been discussing, seemingly for weeks, the minimum measures, right? If one carries something the size of a dried fig, if it's a foodstuff, or it could be something as little as one hair from a horse's tail, and it's significant, or one seed if it's significant to him, he's going to be liable. Now we're talking about a large mass. I mean, a lot of different things could be a large mass, a sack of potatoes, a sack of pressed figs, which we'll get into in a moment, which is actually a very heavy object. So obviously somebody's going to be liable for carrying such a large thing out into the public domain. But we want to keep this in mind. The Mishnah mentions this obvious fact in order to introduce the next idea. So one person who carries a large mass out from the private domain to the public domain, liable for violating Shabbos. Excuse me. If two people carry that large mass together, they're going to be exempt because neither one performed the activity completely. And we're going to break that down momentarily. However, there's a caveat for this. If this thing is so heavy that one person can't carry it by himself and two people are needed in order to carry it, then both of them are liable for violating Shabbos. Rabbi Shimon disagrees with the rabbis, and he would exempt these two people even if two people were required to carry the object because it's so heavy. All right, let's get into the Gemara on this Mishnah. Our sages are looking for a source for this law. They go to Leviticus chapter 4, verse 27. And if one, says, this is the Torah speaking, if one person among the common people sins unwittingly by performing any one of God's commandments not to be done, he will be guilty, etc. So it seems to indicate, and the sages are going to read into this, especially because there's some extra words here, that a person, in order to be liable for a transgression, in this case violating Shabbos by carrying an object from the private domain to the public domain, in order for that person to be liable, he has to do the complete transgression, not a partial transgression. So we've seen before, and we see it, and it's repeated again here, that if one person picks up the object in the private domain and another person takes it from him in the public domain. So the person takes it outside but doesn't set it down. And a person in the public domain then takes it from the person and puts it down. So now neither one of them picked up the object in the private domain, carried it outside, and deposited it in the public domain. And for that reason, neither one of them is liable for violating Shabbos. If two people are needed to carry this thing together, then our rabbis are saying they're going to be liable. But if one person could have carried it by himself, and two of them combined to do it, so then neither one did the whole act of lifting, taking, and carrying, even though they both had their hands on this thing. In other words, this is like what we learned yesterday. It's an atypical manner of carrying. It wasn't necessary for two people to carry the object. They went out of their way to do something in an atypical manner so that they wouldn't violate Shabbos. This might come up in the real world where there's some reason, some pressing need to move this thing from inside to outside, even though it will violate Shabbos. A priori, they shouldn't do it, but for some reason they need to do it. So at least by having two people do it, they're acknowledging that they didn't want to violate Shabbos, and now indeed they're going to be exempt because neither one did the whole thing by himself. Now let's look a little bit closer. Why does Rabbi Shimon exempt two people who carry even if two people are needed? Right? So in Rabbi Shimon's opinion, this idea of one person has to do the whole thing, he's going to exempt them even if two people are needed to carry the object. Neither is capable of carrying it alone. And the example is given is a pressed cake of figs. Pressed cake of figs, a round cake of figs. I mean, how heavy is a cake? It sounds like just a cake. No. When the Talmud talks about a round cake of figs, it's talking about a barrel that they mashed the figs into it, and they kept adding figs, and they kept adding figs, and they compressed them and added them. And so it's like, I don't know how big the barrel is. Imagine it's like this, or maybe it's like this off the ground. But this barrel, it might weigh 100 pounds. It's a heavy barrel. It could only be carried by two people, and Rabbi Shimon would exempt them. But the halacha, the law, is with the rabbis who dispute Rabbi Shimon. Something that requires two people to carry it, and two people carried it, they are liable for violating Shabbos. But let's take a closer look at Rabbi Shimon and the people who dispute him. Rabbi Shimon says that the law is, the verse says, if one person among the common people sins unwittingly by performing it. There's extra words there. It could have just said, if a person sins by carrying. Because there's, if one person among the people sins by performing it, Rabbi Shimon is reading into this that there are three cases being alluded to here, which are going to be exceptions to the obvious rule that he is guilty. What are the three exceptions according to Rabbi Shimon? If one person lifts the object and another one sets it down, neither one is going to be liable. If two people who are capable of carrying the object on their own join forces to carry it together, was unnecessary for two people to carry it. Like imagine, a light object, something that just weighs 5 pounds, a book, right? It's like you could easily carry a book outside, but if two people put both hands on it to carry the book outside, it's like they're acknowledging we had a pressing need, we shouldn't be doing this, and so we're taking this kind of loophole so that neither of us will be liable for violating Shabbos. And if anyone sees us doing it, they'll understand that we know you can't carry on Shabbos, but there was a pressing need here. And Rabbi Shimon goes one step further and says, even if it's that round cake of figs, the barrel of figs, which can't be carried by one person and two people join to carry it, he would exempt them. But the rabbis will argue with him. Rabbi Yehuda says, yes, there are three sets of extra words in the verse, but he interprets differently. He says that the three cases that are exempted by the extra words in our verse, the first is if one person lifts the object and another person sets it down, neither is liable. He agrees with Rabbi Shimon. If two capable people join together, right? Like either one of them could have lifted the book, taken it outside and put it down, but two people join together to do that action, neither one is going to be liable. But the third case, per Rabbi Yehuda, is one who relies on a ruling by a court that made a mistake, right? So if in the town the law was promulgated, there were rabbis in the town who said, oh, there's a new situation. It hadn't been ruled on before. A ruling was needed, right? There was a new technology invented, and now we don't know how to apply the law. So the local rabbis got together, analyzed the situation, gave a ruling, and people relied on that ruling. And then later, a higher authority came, a bigger rabbi or a bigger Beis Din, a more important, higher level court came and said, oh, you guys got it wrong. So the people who relied on your ruling actually made a transgression. In that case, Rabbi Yehuda would exempt the people who relied on the court's mistaken ruling. Rabbi Shimon would not. So Rabbi Shimon, who up until now has given an opinion that seems more lenient than Rav Yehuda's opinion, now we see that Rabbi Shimon is the one who's going to go out, and now he's going to be the more stringent one, because according to Rabbi Shimon, if somebody relies on a court's mistaken ruling, and so he comes to make a transgression of Shabbos, that would be an unwitting transgression, the same kind that we're already talking about, where he didn't know what the law was, and he did it. He had intention to do the act, he just didn't know that it was prohibited, so he would be liable to bring the sin offering. Rabbi Yehuda exempts in that case under the idea that because he relied on a rabbi's ruling, he shouldn't be held liable. It's a situation of beyond his control, circumstances beyond his control. Rabbi Shimon says that's an unwitting violation. Rabbi Yehuda says that is circumstances beyond his control. Rabbi Meir has a third take on these exceptions. Rabbi Meir says the extra words in our verse only provide two exceptions, not three, to the general law of liability. He says he exempts when one person lifts the object and another person sets it down, and he exempts, like Rabbi Yehuda, the person who relies on a mistaken ruling of a rabbinic court. But Rabbi Meir does not exempt two people who carry an object together, even if it was so heavy that either one could have carried it alone, and they joined together in order to sort of take advantage of the loophole, that if two joined together to do something that either one of them could have done alone, they would be exempt. Rabbi Meir doesn't hold by that. Right? So he's more stringent than the halacha. But the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda and like the Mishnah. Right? So the law is if one picks it up and a different one sets it down, exempt. If either one of them could have carried it alone, but they joined together to carry it out, exempt. If neither one could carry it alone, it's such a heavy object that it takes two people, and so they joined together, lifted it up and carried it out, liable for violating Shabbos. Rav Chisda introduces a new case. What if one person is capable of carrying the object out by himself, and he is assisted by a person who is not capable of carrying the object out by himself? So in other words, a person wants to take it outside. There's a reason. He wants to take advantage of the loophole. He doesn't have another, able-bodied adult to help him, so he asks a 3-year-old toddler, hey, put your hand on this thing and help me carry it out. The toddler is not capable of carrying this thing out by himself, and so his assistance, having a hand on the object that the adult is carrying, is considered insignificant. And therefore, the one who is capable of carrying out the object, who received assistance from one who is incapable, the one who is capable is liable for violating Shabbos. It's the same as if one person picked it up and carried it outside, the original case at the top of the Mishnah. And we get support for Rav Chisda's view that one who is capable of carrying and receives assistance from one who is incapable, the one who is capable is liable. We're going to get support from that from some interesting and related cases. Related in the sense that they support this law, but coming from a different field of Torah law. So the first example that's given is a zav who is sitting. A zav is a man who has had some kind of seminal or nocturnal discharge. Not that he was having sex, but like some other fluid came from his private part. Not urine, not what comes out when you're making, not semen that comes out when you're making love, but some other kind of discharge. This is a little bit like tzara'as. It was more when we were at a higher level of holiness, these kinds of things would happen. These cases don't exist so much anymore today. However, if a zav, somebody has this kind of a discharge, so he is rendered tameh by it, he's ritually impure. The tuma, the ritual impurity of a zav, is a strong kind of ritual impurity. So if he is in that state of tuma, he's impure until he immerses in a mikvah, waits till nightfall, and then he becomes pure again. During his state of tuma, while he's ritually impure, if he sits on something, the thing that he's sitting on becomes impure, and something that's touching what he's sitting and is even below it also can become impure. So the case here is the zav he's impure, he's sitting on a bed. The bed has 4 legs. There's a garment, right? Just some piece of clothing, 4 pieces of clothing, one under each of the 4 legs of the bed. The question is, are the garments made tameh? Are the garments rendered impure when the zav is sitting on a bed and the bed is resting on 4 legs, and beneath each of the 4 legs there's a garment? Answer, yes. The garments are all impure because he's sitting on them. He's sitting on the bed, and the bed is on top of the garments. You might have thought that because each of the garments is assisting, right, like the legs of the bed are all assisting in holding up the bed. So you might have said, well, neither leg, no individual leg is holding up the whole bed. They're just combining. But this is like when 2 people carry something that each is incapable of carrying alone. So if 2 people combine, right, to assist each other in carrying a very heavy object, both are liable. And likewise, when the zav is sitting on the bed and there's garments under each of the 4 legs, each of the 4 garments is going to be tameh. It's going to receive impurity of the impurity of the seat, as it's called, that derive from the zav that's sitting on top of the bed. However, if the zav is sitting on a donkey, and the donkey has garments under each of its 4 legs, now the garments are going to be tahor. They're not going to receive the ritual impurity from the zav, even though it can be transmitted because he's sitting on it through the donkey to the garments on the ground under each of its legs. What is the difference between the donkey and the bed? Answer, the donkey is capable of standing on 3 legs. The bed needs all 4 legs. If you chop off one of the legs of the bed will fall onto that corner. But a donkey can easily lift one of its legs and balance itself on the other 3. Therefore, each individual leg is rendering assistance to the others, but it's not necessary assistance. The donkey can stand without the support of any one of its individual legs. Therefore, each leg on its own is legally insignificant, and the garments, the 4 garments, one under each of the donkey's legs, are all considered tahor, pure. They did not receive the ritual impurity from the zav transmitted through the donkey. Another example brought by Rabbi Eliezer. A priest, a Kohen, is performing the avodah in the holy temple. In other words, a priest is bringing an offering on the altar or some other part of the holy service in the temple. It is a requirement that when the priest brings the offering, his feet have to be on the ground of the holy temple, right? He has to be standing on the ground in the holy temple. So if one of his feet is on a vessel or on a stone, then that foot is not on the ground while the priest is bringing the offering on the altar. Has he made a valid offering? His feet have to be on the ground. One foot is on the ground, one is not. It's balanced. The other foot is resting either on a stone or a vessel. The answer is the offering that he brought will be valid if the vessel or the stone that one of his feet is on top of can be removed and he's still standing. In other words, the foot that's on the ground has to have his weight on it, right? If he can stand on one foot, one foot is okay. And of course, this reminds us of the famous story, of the seeker, the skeptical seeker, who came to Shammai and said, "Teach me the whole Torah," while standing on one foot. And Shammai told him to get lost, and he went to Hillel and made the same request, "Teach me the whole Torah," while standing on one foot. And Hillel said, "That which is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow. The rest is commentary." Pardon me, I need to have my do not disturb on. Okay, the rest is commentary. Now go and study. The skeptical seeker was impressed by that answer and began to study, and then later realized how arrogant he'd been to approach such great sages as Shammai and Hillel with his ridiculous request. But because of Hillel's kindness, this person started learning and ended up under the wings of the Shekinah, under the wings of the divine presence. So here we have the case of a priest standing on one foot. If he can stand on one foot and that foot is on the ground, then his offering, the offering that he's bringing perhaps on behalf of someone else, is valid. But if he's resting half his weight on something else that's not the ground, and if you remove that stone or that vessel, he'd fall over, then the offering would not be valid. Another example, Ravina says that when a priest is serving in the temple, everything that he does, like for example, when they slaughter an animal in the temple courtyard and then they receive the blood, some of that blood is going to be sprinkled on the altar. When he's cutting the animal apart, and some of the animal is going to go up on the altar and other parts are going to be eaten. Whatever he's doing in the temple service, or he's placing the showbreads on the table where there's the 12 warm fresh breads that are there all the time when the temple is standing. Anything that he does in the temple, he has to do with his right hand. I mean, this is understandable in the ancient world where they didn't have the hygiene that we have, and the right hand was always kept clean. The right hand, which represents loving kindness, was used for the holy service, for eating, etc., and the left hand was used for other things. So anything had to do, any type of service that a priest, a Kohen, was doing in the holy temple with the right hand. If the left hand was assisting the right hand, does not invalidate the service as long as it was being primarily done with the right hand and the left hand was just sort of along for the ride, or steadying things a little bit. I'm almost thinking like a golfer who says putt with the right hand and the left hand is just along for the ride. That's not good advice for every golfer, but for some golfers it's good advice. Okay. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak discusses the case where two people trap an animal on Shabbos. What are we talking about? An animal, let's say a deer, wanders into a house. If you shut the door on the animal, then you've actually just performed, so that he can't get out, then you perform the prohibited labor on Shabbos. It's prohibited labor on Shabbos of trapping, right? Recall that there's a reason why Jews are not big hunters. That you can't, if you're kosher, you can't go hunting. You can't kill an animal with a bullet and then eat it. You can go fishing, that's okay. But for a kosher animal, whether it's a goat or a sheep or a cow or any of the kosher undomesticated animals like a deer is a kosher animal, but you can't shoot it, not with an arrow, not with a gun, because it has to be shechted, right? It has to be butchered, slaughtered in the proper kosher way. So what you would do is you would trap it somehow, not hurt it, not render it unkosher by hurting it, and then later you could slaughter it properly, and then it could be eaten as a kosher animal. So trapping is part of that process, and trapping was one of the labors needed to build the tabernacle in the desert. Because, why? Because there was a covering of animal skins, ram skins and tachash skins on the tabernacle. They needed those animals. How did they get them? Trapping. Right? So if a deer wanders indoors, you shut the door on him, that's trapping. If two people shut the door together, now two people have joined to do an action that one of them could have easily done by himself. Therefore, it's not the case that one person performed the whole action and now they are exempt from violating Shabbos via trapping. However, a different case, Ravina says, if two people stole an animal, so imagine two people stole a sheep. They're sheep rustlers? Yeah, they're sheep rustlers, right? They stole somebody's sheep. Now, the Torah says, we talked a little bit yesterday about if you steal someone's money, you have to make restitution by returning the money plus a fifth, plus 20%. But if you steal somebody's animal, somebody's livestock, this is actually a much more serious offense. If you steal somebody's sheep, or you steal somebody's ox, or you steal somebody's goat, depending on the animal, and then you slaughter it, right? You steal it, and you can't return it because then you shechted it, you slaughtered it. Now you owe the owner, if you want to make amends, if you want to do the right thing and make amends, you owe the owner either 4 or 5 times the value of the animal. It's a much more serious offense, a much larger penalty to make a restitution. So the whole crime here, the whole transgression is steal the animal and then slaughter it. The question is, well, let's say two people led the animal away. They worked together. Let's say it was an ox. Not so easy to steal somebody's ox. So two people led the ox away, and then one of them slaughtered it. Are both of them liable to make the 4 or 5 times restitution? Only one did the slaughtering, two led him away. Answer, both are liable, because only one person needed to draw the knife across the throat, but the slaughter was happening on behalf of both thieves. So both are implicated, not only in the leading away and stealing the animal, but in the slaughtering as well. And so both of them will be liable to make that 4 or 5 times restitution, depending on which animal we're talking about. And that makes me think a little bit of, in modern secular law, the felony murder rule, right? A felony murder means, let's say, two people conspire to rob a liquor store. All they want to do, they discussed it, all we want to do is go in, point the gun in the guy's face, get the money, and get out of there. Nobody gets hurt. They go in, things get out of control. One of them is a little crazy, hot, a nut. Hey, they're both criminals, but one is a more hardcore criminal and a nut job, and he ends up killing the man behind the register. The other one will say, hey, I only, I'll pay, I'll go to prison, I'll do my time, but I only committed burglary. I only committed robbery, armed robbery, okay, but not murder. I never intended somebody to get killed. That other guy was crazy. We talked about it. Nobody was going to get killed, and then he pulled his gun and went nuts and killed somebody. Similar to the discussion in Reservoir Dogs, Quentin Tarantino's movie. But the felony murder rule holds that it was predictable that when two of you went into a liquor store to do a robbery with guns, that somebody might have ended up dead. And so even though you didn't shoot that guy and you didn't intend for a guy to be shot, you are part of a felony. And in the course of committing that joint felony, that felony conspiracy that the two of you did together, somebody was murdered. Both of you are guilty of murder. That's a good law. And we might see that there's some precedent for that felony murder rule in this law of the two who steal an animal. Only one slaughters it, but both are liable for the whole crime, and both are liable to make the 4 or 5 times restitution to the owner. That's what I've got for us today. I will check the comments for questions. Let's see who's with us. Celsa Canedo says, stealing an animal makes it unkosher. No, no, it doesn't. Stealing an animal does not render it unkosher as long as you don't injure it and as long as it gets slaughtered properly. So the theft does not make it unkosher. Only doing something that would at any time make an animal unkosher would make it unkosher. Lucy Rom Johnson just says, yesterday we wondered whether carrying a baby on Shabbos made a person liable. And the answer is yes. Carrying a baby is carrying, and so that would make you liable for violating Shabbos. But as I mentioned, when a child gets old enough that it can support itself on you, right? Like when the kids are a little bigger, they wrap their legs around you, they kind of hug you, and now they're supporting themselves. So now they're kind of joining in that work, and it's not quite the same liability. But Lucy's question continues. In today's daf, carrying a bed with a live person on it makes the people not liable. No, we don't have that. That was not a case in today's daf. Unless, wait a minute. Are you? Because we cut off before. Oh, I see. You're doing the next Mishnah, which is at the end of page 93. I'm going to cover that one tomorrow. So Mishnah number 6, we're going to get into tomorrow. So let's hold that question for tomorrow. This is a bed with a corpse on it. And that's a very interesting case, somewhat related to what happened when King David died, because King David died on Shabbos. We discussed that earlier in our journey through Masechet Shabbos, and we'll talk more about carrying a bed with a corpse on it tomorrow. Okay. Tom Beck says, is there any way now, in the absence of the Holy Temple, to expiate a sin for which we might once have been obligated to bring a sin offering? Okay, so Tom, that's the key question, right? That's such an important question. And this is one of the reasons why we mourn the loss of the temple so much. We don't have that ability to bring sin offerings. We don't have the ability as a nation to bring the national sin offerings like the offerings of Yom Kippur. There's so many, we can't bring peace offerings, we can't bring elevation offerings, and there's just so many mitzvahs that are in the Torah that we can't do. Like a huge one is the Pesach offering, the Paschal lamb, which we would bring at Passover, we cannot do in the absence of a temple. So there's many, many reasons why we mourn with a heavy, heavy heart the absence of the temple. To answer your question specifically, so we can't bring a sin offering, for example, for an unwitting violation of Shabbos, that I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do that, and I carried on Shabbos, and then I realized, and I want to make amends between me and the Lord. I want to get right with the Lord. What can I do if there's no temple? And the answer is, as our sages teach, we can make amends. We absolutely can make amends. We can't do it with a sin offering, so we can't do those mitzvahs. We can't do it in that way. But the 3 primary avenues along which we can make expiation now are tefillah, prayer, teshuvah, atonement, and tzedakah, charity. These are the 3 things. Now, each of these is not simple. Each is a whole category. We need to be sincere in our prayers. We need to do the prayers that have been assigned to us to pray, and very personal supplication. As we learned in Tractate Brachas, the first tractate of the Talmud, when we pray, okay, there's certain requirements for the prayer that we have to say, but if all we do is say the required prayers, so we haven't prayed. We haven't prayed properly. There has to be a moment every time we pray which is personal and real, a real supplication between me and God, where I admit where I'm falling short, where I ask for help to do better, where I face myself, from God's perspective, meaning there's no lies, nothing is hidden, real prayer, right? And teshuvah, atonement, there's many steps to make a proper atonement, but minimally, we have to fully acknowledge what we've done, not deny it, not run from it, not hide from it, approach it in an organized way, meaning, okay, why did I do that? How did I end up in a position where I committed that transgression? What am I going to do so that I don't get in that position again? And the teshuvah is actually not complete, according to Rambam, according to Maimonides, until we're in that situation again. We're faced with that same, temptation, and we've outgrown it with God's help. That's a complete teshuvah. And then tzedakah, charity. It's very important. I mention it over again, and I keep mentioning it, and it's not because we're a nonprofit and you should donate to us. Everybody should donate to our nonprofit so we can do more work and share more wisdom with more people. There it is. But everybody should give tzedakah to the causes that they believe in, and you should spread it around, and you should give to lots of different causes that you believe in. But you should really set aside 10% of your net income. The easiest, best, smartest, most organized way to do it. Have a separate bank account. Every time money comes into your bank account, immediately when it goes in, put 10% over into the charity account, the Meiser account in Hebrew, the tzedakah account, right? Now, when you do it as soon as the money comes in, it's easy, it becomes a habit, it doesn't hurt so much, you didn't give up so much. Just, okay, 10% of my net income goes over to the charity account. Now, in that charity account, wow, this money is all there, I have to give it away by the end of the year. Now, no matter what my level is, no matter where I am, rich, poor, in between, 10% of whatever I make goes over to that charity account, and now I'm a philanthropist. Now I'm deciding which worthy causes I'm going to support and being involved. I think it just makes sense, right? What were the offerings that we brought in the temple? They were sacrifices. What's a sacrifice? It's something that's difficult to give, right? I'm a shepherd. I have a certain number of animals. That is my livelihood. I'm going to take one of those animals and give it away to God, or give it away to the temple, or give it away to the priests, or give it away for poor people. It hurts. It's difficult. It's something I'm sacrificing, something of my own. And the equivalent to that today is our income, right? So we put aside 10%. Now we're living at a much holier level. First of all, God is our business partner, because now the more money I make, by definition, the more I'm going to give away. So God wants me to do well so I can give more to those righteous causes. Plus, I'm going to be involved actively in selecting those causes. I'm going to think about which causes I want to support. I'm going to think about, hey, you know what? This cause that I gave some money to, I really like what they're doing. I want to get more involved. I want to become a board member. I want to go do it with my hands. Next week, before I go any further, if you're still with me, it's my birthday. Not quite yet, but as night comes in, it becomes Sivan 16, the 16th of Sivan, and that's my Hebrew birthday. So I'm turning 55, and our tradition is on our birthday, it's not about getting presents, it's about giving blessings. So, who needs a blessing? Ask now. I'm here to give blessings. I am here to give blessings, especially if it's already nighttime where you are. So it's already the 16th of Sivan. If you need a blessing in your life, put it in the comments right now. Let me give you a blessing on my birthday. On our birthdays, when we come back around to that day on which we were born, there's a special channel opened up, and we're able to channel and transmit a little bit more holiness than we normally could when we give a blessing. So if you need a blessing, please ask in the comments, and I'm going to be giving blessings. Almost forgot. But at any rate, when you get involved, and so next week is my birthday, and there's an organization that I believe in, Our Big Kitchen, It was created by Yossi Segelman in Australia, I believe in Sydney, and now he's here in LA. And it's wonderful. He gets people together. They put together care packages of high quality, organic, healthy food. And then they give these packages away to people who need it. During the pandemic, they've been giving to frontline responders, to health, people working in emergency rooms, firemen, policemen. Beautiful, And so on my regular birthday, my secular birthday, my family and I are going to put together some of these packages, and then we're going to go deliver them. But my Hebrew birthday starts tonight, so I'm giving blessings. Who needs a blessing? Okay, let's see. A bunch of comments just came in. Edberg, I don't know if you asked for it, but I'm giving you a blessing for a complete and speedy recovery. We've known you for a while. We're always davening for you. And now special blessing for Refuah Shlema for you, Ed Berg. Judah Berman says, happy birthday. Thank you so much. And I bless you, Judah Berman. And I bless you, Corey Mangold. And I bless you, James D. Roth. And I bless you, Tom Beck. And I bless you, Brina Bloomfeld. Who says, this is my first time. You make Talmud so accessible. Thank you. You're very welcome, and you should be blessed to learn and to teach. And Rochelle Rosen, I bless you. And Kelsa Canedo says, I would like prayer for the homeless we serve here in Houston. The church that was lending the land where we feed them has been sold, and we need a place to feed them. Celsa Canedo, I bless you that you and your group doing such beautiful, worthy work should out of nowhere miraculously get a much better situation where you can feed many more people and do much more holy work. Your intention is so beautiful, and I bless you that your strength should be magnified 100 times so you can help 100 times more people than you're already helping. John Shore says a blessing for Yehuda Chaim ben Moshe. You should be blessed. And Brina Bloomfeld, I need Hashem to help guide me towards my next job in life. I daven, but I'm feeling so disconnected. Brina, that feeling of disconnection is so holy. Right now, you're tapping in, you're asking for that connection. It's feeling dry, but that is the beginning of something that's coming. There's a wave coming to you, right? And so what's happening right now is it's like if you're at the beach, right? Before a big wave comes in, the water recedes, right? The ocean water recedes, and it feels like you're stranded and dry. And it's only because God is, sort of saving up, storing up, putting a lot of energy together so a big wave of blessing and holiness can come to you. Rita Davidson says, Mazel Tov, and you should be blessed. So this is a blessing for Brina Bat Yaakov Lev. And Pauline Michael, I bless you that all of your worthy desires should be fulfilled this year. And Chris Carson says, happy birthday, and you already are my blessing. That's so sweet, and you should be blessed with unlimited blessing, Chris. And Stephen Gagir, you should be blessed with unlimited blessing. And Corey Mangold, and Janice Beanstalk, and Tracy Deshanks, all of you should be blessed with so much koach, so much strength, so that you can do the holy work that you've been itching to do. And over here, Lynn Job on the YouTube side, you should be blessed to learn and teach Torah. You're such a dedicated student with a beautiful neshama, and you love to learn, and you should transmit those teachings to the people around you, and they should be blessed by you. Okay. And Donna Smith, in Bahama, North Carolina. Blessings to you, Donna Smith, for a total refuah shlema and joy and happiness and a healing not only of body, mind, and spirit, but of family. Everyone in your family should have their relationships healed, and everyone should draw together, especially in this difficult time. My pals, I can't keep doing every individual because I got to go and have dinner with my family. But this is a collective blessing to the accidental Talmudist community. You give me so much more than I could ever give you, and I bless you all that you should grow in kindness, in wisdom, in strength, in health, in meaning, and love every day of your lives.